Hello and welcome to the Mild Opinion Podcast, Episode 3. I'm Luke,
I am Logan.
and today we're going to be talking about Invincible as this newest season, Season 3, just wrapped up, and we just watched the season finale, and it was pretty good. And I know this season has brought a lot of people kind of controversy with it, with kind of the animation style and I feel like really the only thing is like the animation style. There hasn't been a whole lot of problems other than that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, which with Invincible as a whole, everyone is pretty much down with all the characters, all the voice acting's phenomenal, the storyline's phenomenal, and everyone all pretty much agrees on all that. The only aspect of the show really that I think people ever dog on is the animation, which it's good enough for what it is, but also there is definitely some room for improvement. But yeah, I mean, season 3, the animation was fine, and I mean, you gotta take it for what it is. You can either have better animation and wait for 2-3 years, or worse animation, more content faster. So
Sure. And before we get too far into any content here, of as to, story points or anything, just a spoiler warning for anybody who may be watching or who may intend to watch Invincible in the future, because we'll be talking about what happened in the very latest episode.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I personally, in terms of the animation style, would prefer to have more seasons coming out with some of the key heavy hitter stuff having the better animation. If that's the big problem with that, because between season 1 and season 2, everybody's starving to find out what happens next, especially after season 1 is such a big deal for superhero fans of the comic books of Invincible. But then to kind of there was that whole thing with season 2 of stopping in the middle and taking a break and then coming back.
Yeah.
And when this season came out, I honestly, it kind of took me by surprise, where I was like, oh yeah, the new season's out.
Yeah.
And I liked this season a lot, but you can tell, and it's been just again, the name of that controversy is everybody saying the animation has been off and it's not the same. And it's true, but I honestly would value getting it out instead of missing it and it taking forever to finish.
Yeah, I agree. And with that too, you kind of mentioned some of the more important and better stuff, having a little bit better animation and stuff like that, which I have noticed they have kind of been doing. It was really apparent in the latest episode, the season 3 finale, in the fight with Conquest, that there was a lot more flow to the animation. There was more, it seemed like there was more effort put into the animation in that specific fight and stuff than there was in some of the other parts of the show that weren't as big. Which, I mean, I think that's kind of a decent happy medium for the fans and stuff, because it's still a little bit less strain and less time that they need to put into it, so they can still put out more content. But in the big fight scenes and stuff like that, and the really important scenes, if they put a little bit more effort into the animation, a little bit more time into it to make it better, that kind of makes up for it. Because do you really need a super detailed animation of, Mark flying through the sky?
Yeah.
Not really. But do you want to see a really detailed animation of him fighting one of the most powerful people that he's faced so far? Definitely.
Yeah. And it definitely helps too with that payoff aspect of what each season will be leading to, because the finales of all 3 seasons now have been insane. And I think just you said it while we were watching it, you can already tell in the first minute that there, you can see the hair moving more. You can tell air is moving through this whole thing, and it makes it feel more realistic to compared to some of the other things where it feels like it is just super rigid, computer images moving. But yeah, and especially when it comes to those gory moments, which have led the charge on every season finale of the show so far, they really go full throttle into getting the close-ups on people's teeth getting knocked out. And
Yep.
when somebody goes just berserk on someone else.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, we just finished with the season 3 finale. What were your thoughts on the finale as well as season 3 as a whole?
I really liked this season as a whole, and I felt like every time, personally, like whenever I finish a show and then like a year later a new season comes out, I like need to watch the first episode of the new season to remember why I liked the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of was just like, all right, I'll start Invincible season 3 when it came out, and then those first 3 episodes immediately it was like, oh right, this is why I like this show. So I felt like season 3 kind of like kept me on that point of this is something I'm going to turn on every week and watch it as it comes out, so I don't get stuff spoiled for me, and so that I can enjoy it like as it's coming out with like the rest of the fan base. So when it came to this finale, it's with any finale of a show you're watching, it's great, where you're gonna miss it until it comes again, but in the meantime you can like think about where does this go next. And for like you and me who haven't like read every single page of these comics but like know some details about where it goes and some stuff's left up to a mystery, it's like a happy medium of what the next big thing is going to be, because I feel like we've been told this whole season, no, there's a big fight coming at the end with Conquest, and like all these other versions of Mark are going to show up. And it didn't honestly ruin it for me to know that before it happened. It honestly kind of made me more excited knowing there was something really big coming, because it was just kind of like a looming threat over the story. Yeah.
I think this season was really, really good. It's not only story-wise, but just with the voice actors that were involved and everything else. Like, it was just really, really cool. And also, the 2 final episodes being the Mark invasion of the different variations of Mark, followed by the Conquest fight, is insane. Especially because with the Conquest fight, like 95% of the entire episode is literally just Mark and Eve fighting Conquest, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was brutal too. And what was great for me, or watching that, is Conquest is like, this is his first time showing up, and in the limited time of that one episode, you learn so much about him in a way that doesn't feel like forced down your throat, and you learn more about the mission of the Viltrum Empire, and also just how horrible of a being this person is, and like what he's capable of. And you know, Cecil in the episode even says it, where he's like, this is worse than Nolan, and Nolan is still something that's remembered in the universe to the time that they're at as like, that was horrible. And now like this probably looked about two or three times as bad as that in terms of like the collateral damage, and it looked more effortless for him, which is scary. And it just is, I really enjoyed how much of an impact he was able to give in only having that amount of time.
Yeah, I think that was something that was really cool about it as well, because they introduced Conquest. He tells Mark about his mission. He tells him what he's there to do. And then as soon as the fighting starts, everyone just acknowledged how insane he was power-wise. Because you have Cecil talking about it, Mark's acknowledging it. Like, everyone, like, he just showed up out of nowhere. Like, no one knows who he is. Nobody knows anything about him. He just shows up, and everyone's like, oh, this is a bad dude.
Yeah. It did give a lot of room, though, to show... Yeah, it's been, like, the spiral for Mark of becoming, like, stronger, and kind of like his philosophy of not holding back on stuff, but he keeps being faced with the situations where, like, he has no choice, and, like... This was another one of those moments where it's like he realizes that even when he doesn't hold back, like, he might not be the toughest guy in the room, and it's always, he cannot catch a break from being constantly humbled by his own philosophy. And it's honestly, like, I feel bad for Mark, but it's like we said, we're tired of seeing him get his butt kicked. So it was cool to see him kind of like have another moment where he just snaps, especially after we've kind of been seeing little moments like that throughout the season where he's kind of playing a little faster and looser with that just because of everything he's been through.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool concept that they're getting into as well, just because from what we've seen in the future and other realities, Mark ultimately becomes evil in 99% of those other universes, other realities. So I think it's kind of cool that we're kind of seeing now more so than ever why he's going in that direction a little bit. And also, because I feel like in the beginning when we first saw like the other reality marks and stuff like that, where they were all evil, everyone was kind of like, oh, like why are they all evil? Because like the mark that we have was like purely good, like 100% a good guy. And now the more we've been seeing, the more we're like, oh, okay, so he's not necessarily 100% good guy, because as he's getting stronger and he's facing these tougher decisions against tougher opponents, he's starting to realize, like, oh man, I can't just be the good guy all the time against these people who want to do nothing but harm, you know, me and the people that I care about.
Yeah, and I think he's seen how that's failed him a lot this season too, and it's kind of been from the beginning because he's constantly been like traumatized by the crap that he's had to fight through, but like especially towards the end, and like it hit in like several different ways. So like in the Powerplex episode, who I enjoyed him a lot, and I also enjoyed how he like kept being in it afterwards. Like in the next episode, I thought he was awesome, but he's kind of raising the question of like he's not a good person just because he fights for us now, which is like, we know Mark is a good guy and like he was trying to help and do all this, but he was a good example of like everybody else is blind to this and there's nobody to answer for it except for him, which was honestly tragic for Powerplex, because like he's justifiably angry and also paired with what turned out to be a very powerful superpower.
Yeah.
But then, like in the following episode, Mark sees what all these different versions of him are capable of, and it's like Powerplex in that episode even says like, "Look at this. This is all because of you again. Why are we pretending it's not because of him?" And now, in this, there's a whole nother thing twice as big as when Nolan came and fought Mark, and the whole world is just shattered from it.
Yeah, and I think that just goes to show that with the position that Invincible has been put in, he has to make tough decisions, obviously, all the time, but also it's not as simple as, oh yeah, you're the world's protector, like you're the hero, because for some people, I mean, he's not, and I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked, because you know, you see he is the main character, he is the hero of the show, but also when it gets down into that deeper stuff, you know, he might not be everybody's hero, and I think that with Powerplex, that was what made him such a cool character in general. It's just because he had cool powers and stuff, which is all cool and all that, but like his reasoning for what he done, and like his hatred for Invincible, and the like tragedy of losing his family and stuff. It's what makes a really good character, and honestly, for them to be able to lay all that out in like one episode is just, you know, it's a really good way to see how well they are at writing the storylines and stuff for these characters, and one of the main reasons why I think a lot of people really like the series.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking on that, I feel like even before we just saw this episode where like Conquest shows up and is like arguably who you could say is the big bad of the season, even though he only showed up at the very end and was there as a looming threat for one episode, but I really enjoyed the villains in this season, and I mean like mainly the last 3 episodes, because I feel like a lot of the build up to that was kind of Mark dealing with other problems that are in their universe, like one by one, that are coming up. But it's also been things that have been building up to it. So like early on, he's dealing with kind of these forgotten villains like Doc Seismic and such in like season 1 or in the first episode of this season. But then he's mainly at odds with like Cecil because they keep coming to butting heads of what's right and wrong and what should and shouldn't be done to stop situations like this from happening. But then the last 3 episodes have just been off the charts with how much I've enjoyed the villain. So like Powerplex, his whole story was great, and I think it was cool to watch him from somebody who's being like not like framed as a villain, but like has no choice but to take a villainous stance to get his message out, to then becoming a full-fledged villain who is out for blood and like revenge against Mark now. And then Angstrom, Levy. In season 2, I was kind of just like, why is this guy so like angry all the time? But then when he came back, he's like actually kind of like scary powerful. And just we saw his plan just executed by all these horrible versions of Mark. And that's something where it feels like a tipping show and a point where it's like that's going to change everything from that point on to the rest of the show, is because now people see Invincible presumably as he's the guy who's been responsible for all these things. And then when Mark is at the lowest of the low, then shows up Conquest and is like, all right, time to beat up little Bud again.
Yep. And then also, we can't forget, even though they haven't been in the show nearly as much as I'd like them to, but also you can't have time for everything all the time. But the return of Alan and Omni-Man.
And Battle Beast.
And Battle Beast, yes. I was very excited to see Battle Beast again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that they're all out and about again, because that's going to be, from what I know of the comics and stuff, that's going to be very important later on. Some of the characters that were in this, well, a lot of the characters that were in this season are going to be very important later on when it gets to the war against the Viltrumites.
And yeah, we got like little sneak peeks of that. Like we saw Tech Jacket for the first time, who I saw people saying that they were gonna, I don't know a lot about the properties of their comic book series, but a lot of people were saying that Tech Jacket wasn't gonna be in it because of some property not being in the hands of Amazon. It looks like, though, they're purposely putting little snippets of Tech Jacket being in it so that later on it's not just like, oh, by the way, here's this person who dropped out of the clear blue sky. They're kind of doing that now, but it's kind of making sense because it's something that's leading up to someone who will be more important later on. Being
more of a background character for now until they take their role, their time to shine.
Yeah, and that's going into just like a small issue I had with this season too. Is it feels like Alan and Omni-Man have just been out in the middle of space for so long, and then when they do show up, you learn so much about the overarching plot of what's going on, and then they're just gone. And I do tend to enjoy the like human back on Earth villains more than like the Viltrumite storyline, but I'm like still, you watch the show because you commit to like the overarching problem that Mark has to overcome, which is Viltrum wants Earth, and there's these characters who are gonna have to stand up for it, even though they seemingly are outnumbered a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of another problem that I had with it, is not only were like, Alan and Omni-Man not in it a whole ton, which it was fine, but I would like for them to be in it more. But also, it feels like in this season specifically, a lot of the other characters that weren't like, Cecil and Eve and Mark and the more important characters now to the storyline, like a lot of the Guardians of the Globe characters and stuff like that really took a big step back this season. And, I know a lot of people don't necessarily watch it for them because they're power scaling wise, in this part of the series, not very good compared to Mark and Eve and the villains at hand.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. They're just. Also, the current Guardians of the Globe lineup. Not very good.
It doesn't feel like a team. Like, it really doesn't feel like a team. Especially now after the Invincible War. They kind of just fell apart.
Yeah.
But even before that, they didn't feel like a cohesive team. It seemed like Immortal calling the shots, Kate backing him up, and then everyone else kind of just being like, yeah, all right. And that kind of felt like the point of Rex, too, is to kind of be that, like, I'm so tired of just taking orders kind of stuff. But it was all he, as he said, it's all he ever knew, because that's what he was grown up to be. But yeah, now Rex is gone. Immortal and Kate probably still out of it.
Yeah.
I know that it's almost certain everybody comes back at certain points, but I'm not sure what the next step is for them, because also now what was his name? Nightblade? Darkwing?
Yeah.
Darkwing's MIA.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen with all that, which, and also, I know it was a huge plot point, and it'll probably be a huge thing from here on out. It kind of does suck that Rex is gone now, especially because out of all the people who were background characters who didn't have a huge part in this season, Rex and Ray were like the only ones who did, and his character was making a lot of character progression in a really short time, and now he's gone. So that was, which I mean, I know that was for a reason. They were building him up just so the death would make it that much like more impactful, but still,
and he went out in an awesome way. But I will miss him, because it's like he does give you like that person that's not as powerful as the strongest guy, but then like in season 2 is when everybody really started to like him, is when he literally takes a bullet to the head and like kind of just shrugs it off and goes berserk on, I think their names are like the Lizard League.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Lizard League people. And since then, everybody's just really liked him, and he's been great every time he's been on screen, so that definitely will feel like a void to be filled, but they can then use that as an opportunity to dive back into these other characters who have kind of taken the back seat, like Robot, Monster Girl, even Immortal, even though he's been getting his butt kicked constantly throughout the whole show.
His sole job is to get beat up and then come back to life.
Yeah.
I really hate that that's the direction that they've taken with his character, because when the show first came out, season 1, we got introduced to Immortal, and he had like a similar power set to Omni-Man, just on a much weaker scale. I was like, dang, this guy's really cool. And then as the show's progressed, he has gotten much, much less cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, and back in season 1, you think like, oh, he's dead for a while, because he shows up, you don't know a lot about his character. Omni-Man kills him. Then he comes back, and actually for a second it seems like he's gonna be like the ace in the hole to stop Omni-Man, because, you know, like, Cecil sends him in. He has that whole like thing where you get little glimpses of his entire past, where you like sees like Abe Lincoln and all this stuff. And then he just gets his butt kicked again. And then when he comes back after that, I remember watching season 2, he was acting so like stone cold about everything and leading the new Guardians. And I was like, he seems evil almost. But then I just realized, especially with this season, it's just that's how he is. He witnessed his entire last team get killed. He dies all the time, and now we've seen, and what I thought was a really interesting episode this season is that eventually all catches up with him and he goes insane.
Yep.
And I thought that episode was amazing.
Yeah, that was a really cool episode, and I think the way that they've done so much in season 3, while also managing to sprinkle in a lot of things for the future, very good job. I was really impressed with the way that they done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving on from season 3, if you're ready to do that.
I'm curious about like your standing of where all these seasons rank, or just like even just the best moments from the show.
Yeah.
What do you think, and how do you think they compare in each season?
So I think ranking wise, it's really tough, just because they're all so good and the story's developed very, very well in every season. I would say my favorite season, probably season 1, just because it's the whole world building, you learn everything, and then at the end when you find out Omni-Man's not good, it's a whole crazy ride from beginning to end. And then between season 2 or 3, I don't know. Probably season 3, just because there was a lot of stuff that was already established. I feel like season 2 was a lot of kind of figuring out what's going on from what happened after season 1.
A lot of building towards what's to come.
Well, because you didn't know what happened to Nolan, and then you're finding out about Oliver and everything, so on and so forth. You're finding out about Alan and like what's going on with him. So I think that was don't get me wrong, it was still, season 2 was phenomenal, but it felt more of like a bridge between what was happening after the end of season 1 and then what was going on in season 3.
Yeah, and it felt like there was so much like, we need to put this in now so that people will explain it, or so that we'll be able to explain our reasoning for things later on. So yeah, I would probably put the same ranking forward as I liked season 1 the most, especially because Nolan had such a like awesome role in the first one, even though he's merciless and evil, but he was so charismatic and such a like mystery as to why he's doing these things. And then the final episode of that just seemed like shocking to watch. Season 2 definitely, it felt like, you're right, like a bridge, and so yeah, I'd probably put that one third. And then season 3 I thought was pretty fast paced. I honestly didn't really feel like there was any filler. It felt like they came back to a lot of things that had been set up beforehand.
Yeah. Well, and also getting back to like the season 2 stuff, there was a lot of that as much as like a bridge to other stuff, there was like the whole like Mark in college storyline and all that. So it's like he wasn't doing full-time hero stuff, so it felt like a lot of that stuff was more like character building, which is fine, good, all that. But also, the stuff that happened to him in college, the stuff that wasn't important to the superhero stuff, or like Nolan, or like the Viltrumites and all that stuff, the college era stuff, and even like Amber and all that, isn't really that meaningful now in season 3, because that stuff's kind of just gone. And his whole world is completely different.
Yeah. I feel like, too, with Amber, she felt in season 2 like she was very much just there for emotional stakes. Like, not really a whole lot of, like, major consequence to the story, especially when she showed back up in season 3. It's kind of just like, oh, hey, Eve, and then they talk, and then she shows up with a new guy, and Mark's like, it's great to see you, and that's it.
Yeah.
Same thing kind of with, like, Mark's friend William. Like, even last season was more important to kind of, like, Mark breaking out of being human to being full-time superhero.
Yeah.
And then this season, he showed up a couple times and is just bowling. And then he's gone after we see him once during the Invincible War, and then haven't seen him since. So it does feel like they're leaning more heavily into that Mark. This is full-time Mark. He doesn't have the room in his life so much anymore.
Yeah.
For these past things, which has been a big point of his relationship with Eve, because she's one of the only people in the world who would understand that he has to be there all the time without question for a lot of his responsibilities.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And since we've gone through the rankings and stuff of what we've already seen, what are there any things that you're excited about for the future of the show?
Yeah, I won't go too far into it, but this pairs with another one of the frustrations we said where there's like characters taking back seats to things. The things that you and I both know kind of down the line happen with certain of the human characters. I specifically am very interested in Robot because I know that his road goes insane for what happens with his character, and that he's important in so many different ways to things that happen later on. So I'm interested to see more of him. Obviously, at the ending, we get the cliffhanger of Damien Darkblood and where appears to be Hell, preparing something where he claims he has a surface dweller that could help whoever he was answering to there. And it seems like he's saying it could be Mark. But at the same time, it's like, is he just saying that because like Mark's leaning more into not hesitating to kill people anymore, or is it that he has someone else in mind? And, you know, we saw at the ending that Cecil is keeping Conquest alive, so could it be that that's part of how he comes back?
Yeah.
Which would be scary.
That would be very,
that combo.
Very scary. Yeah, Conquest imbued with the power of Hell would not be anything good.
No. But yeah, I think I'll be excited to see more of Damien Darkblood because I thought in season 1 he was interesting whenever he showed up, and he honestly almost revealed to everybody like, hey, Nolan is lying. He's evil. And like we learned this season that like Cecil has always been super like cautious about Nolan because he's like, this guy just showed up and claimed to be helping and he's lying and we don't know why. Which I also enjoyed Cecil a lot, and I've enjoyed him more and more as the show's gone on, especially as they gave us kind of his backstory this season, and it's kind of made me just appreciate him more and more as it's gone on, because it seems like he's the guy in the shadows, like government superhero guy, but at the same time, I think the reason that characters like Mark and like the Guardians turn on him is because when they find out he's not doing what they agree with, he's somebody who has been there for them and actually has appeared to like want what's best for them while still being honest about what he needs from them.
Yeah, and I think that is a really cool thing about Cecil, is even if, you know, he does some stuff that's not necessarily good to the people, like the heroes that he's working with and stuff like that, and like even after getting into it with Mark and Debbie and the Guardians of the Globe and pretty much all of the heroes at some point in time during the show, if they ever need him, he's there to help. If, you know, anytime anything happens, he's there and he will help, whether or not, you know what I mean, they've been arguing or whatever. He's always just there, and he's always, you know, sending in whatever weapons he can to help whoever it is in whatever situation it is, which I think is kind of cool.
And we even saw him, you always know he's the kind of person who's keeping things from people that they won't like, and he's had that reputation since season 1 with like Mark's mom, and Nolan even doesn't know all this stuff about Cecil. But you know, he does show that like humanity side where he initially was on the same side as like Mark would take with, I guess the right word, the rehabilitating of villains, is he initially was against it too, and then after everything he's been through was like, this is the only way, as from what he understands. And then in this season, after the Invincible War, he even comes up to Mark and offers like just something as simple as like, hey, I know we're not okay like with each other and we disagree about a lot of stuff, but like as somebody who understands, like you can talk to me. Yeah. And that was like, wow.
That was a really cool moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious just about like who some of your favorite characters are in the show as a whole, like 2 or 3 top ones.
In the show as a whole,
or like ones you're most interested in. Or enjoy the most.
I definitely enjoy Battle Beast quite a bit. Just the raw power, the bloodlust. Battle Beast is just super sick. And anytime Battle Beast is in the show, you know that it's going to be something crazy. It's going to be a cool fight, or you're going to see him doing something cool. So I think Battle Beast is a really cool character.
We know he'll be back. And
Yep.
There's some big things coming for him.
There are some big things indeed.
Yeah.
Alan, I really like Alan, especially now that Alan is super, super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. And also the Alan backstory and everything really made me enjoy him as a character a lot more. And also just the comedic aspect and everything. Alan's just super, super cool.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, well, we just talked about how much we both love Cecil, so Cecil's pretty much up there. And then lastly, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like all of the main characters. I like, Eve and Mark and so on and so forth. But I think lastly, I don't know, I think Nolan, Omni-Man, great character. Yeah, it's kind of a cliche answer, but...
Yeah. I feel like I definitely enjoyed him the most in season 1, but I still like him when he's around. It's just like I'm waiting for him to really get back in there. For me, I think my top 3 at the moment are they're pretty basic answers. I like Cecil. I like Mark. I like Mark just because everything he's been through, he's still trying to do the right thing, and even though that's shaky, it's I get it's his character learning about what he can and can't do with the responsibility he's given. And then I really liked Rexplode, but now he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone, but never forgotten.
But he was, because you watch season 1, it's man, this guy's the ultimate jerk. Man, my voice keeps cracking bad too. But you watch it and he's the ultimate jerk. And then in season 2, he has that moment where it all just turns around and he literally consciously is just well, after that, I'm going to just be a better person now.
Yep.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I'm curious to see... It seems like season 4 is really going to be a point after kind of the turning point of the end of season 3 here, where things are about to get absolutely insane. As insane as they've already been, it's going to really start to come to a head there.
Yeah, and as we get closer to a lot of the bigger plot points in the story and stuff like that, assuming that'll be some of it in season 4, I am really excited to see when the things start happening more frequently against the Viltrumites, because it's getting to a point to where there's going to be more and more Viltrumite encounters, especially with, comics-wise, a little bit of spoiler, but,
Yeah, we've dabbled a little.
Yeah, we've dabbled a little.
Yeah.
But with the team that they put together, most of which are already in the show anyway, but with Omni-Man, Mark, Battle Beast, Tech Jacket, who we mentioned, who's barely even been in it, Oliver, who am I missing?
Speed Racer.
Oh, Space Racer.
Space Racer, right.
Is there any more? I feel like I might be missing somebody. No, I'm not sure. But yeah.
Sure. I think that's all of them.
Just a super powerful team going up against these Viltrumites.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can see that relatively soon. I don't know if they'll get quite there in season 4, but
there's a lot
at least a little
groundwork.
leading up to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of groundwork to get all of them in the same spot, and especially with Tech Jacket and Space Racer, we haven't met them yet.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how they're gonna get to be part of that if there's not any weird property rights stuff going on.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that I am really hoping that Tech Jacket gets a bigger role with speaking parts and stuff in season 4, and they actually introduce him, especially since he's already here now. I really hope that is all right, here he is in season 3, and then season 4 he becomes a fully fleshed out character where we learn about him and he's there and all that.
Yeah, because I know who he is, I know he's cool, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that all gets fleshed out in season 4.
Yeah. Alright, well, that's our thoughts on Invincible and Invincible Season 3, which just came out. So if you haven't seen the show and are still watching for some reason, even though we've given several spoiler alerts to not watch it if you haven't, do watch it. It's a great show, and it's the other half of Amazon's superhero shows right now, and it's just great. And yeah. So this has been the Mild Opinion Podcast episode 4, and thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.